Hello, hello, and welcome to Face to Face. I am your host, Gabriella Calendar, and today I am here with Dr. Ernest Biscardi. I say Dr. Ernest Biscardi, but what I want you to know is I've actually known Ernest for many years. I've seen the work that he does and the difference that he makes for people in dealing with various challenges. So please help us welcome to the show, Dr. Ernest Biscardi. Hi, Ernest.
Morning, Gab. Good afternoon, Gab.
Welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks so much for being here. So let's get right into it. Ernest, tell us first about the work that you do. Tell our audience.
Okay, so for the past 42 years, I have been working with children who are profoundly disabled and terminally ill. And throughout the course of that time, dealing with these children, it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's behavioral, it's them, it's their families, it's their siblings. And over the course of the years, I was a great studier of behavioral psychology and looking into people's different conditioned responses as they relate to their current circumstances. And I realized that this is everybody, not just these children, and started to work with adults all over the world with all kinds of issues, basing the treatment in behavioral conditioned responses that were created at an early age that they carry with them throughout their entire lives, and found that the key to altering people's lives is in altering their conditioned responses, which keep them stuck where they are right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, you tell me about the kinds of people that you work with. Are they of a certain, status or?
I work, for me, people are people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been blessed with being able to work with every kind of person that this planet has to offer. And what I've really learned is people are just people. No matter what status you are, no matter whatever you are, people are all inside of the same needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a beautiful thing to see people are the same, period. There's not much more to say than that. They've got certainly have different experiences, certainly have different circumstances, but at the end of the day, human beings are human beings.
So what you're saying is so for example, right? Like it's Black History Month, and so to me it's Black History Month every month. But I'll just announce since February it's Black History Month. Post George Floyd, everybody was in a different spot. And I'll tell you, share from my own life, the spot I was in was why did it take George Floyd to have this? Why not Sean Bell? And then there was a lot of loss in my own life. I lost a lot of friends. We shared different politics and it became very sensitive. It was in the middle of COVID. So I lost a lot of people through COVID who died, lost some clients who cut back because of COVID. The main theme was loss, loss, loss. And I saw a lot of my Black communities suffer heavily. I saw white communities, Puerto Rican communities, Pacific Island communities suffer. So when you're saying that we're all the same, or when you say like certainly there's different circumstances, even though there was the marches post George Floyd in the middle of COVID, everyone is experiencing those circumstances differently. But the overall, regardless of what economic bracket, was that loss, regardless of ethnic background, was that loss. So when you say people are the same, can you speak a little bit more to that in terms of how people may be dealing with the loss? Or I don't know if I've asked that correctly, but I would love for you to speak to that somehow.
Sure. So the same, hold that on the side for a second, the same.
Yeah.
Now, as I said before, I deal with people and work with people inside of the conditioned responses that they developed early on. So different people have different responses to loss. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, loss is a way of life. Some people are hysterical if they've lost something. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, somewhere in the middle. It's a spectrum. And you actually can't deal with the loss until you deal with your conditioned response to the loss. There are
Mm-hmm.
people during that time that were just giving up. They're resigned, never going to change, nothing's going to happen. And then you
Mm-hmm.
look back and see, how did that behavior become so dominant in this human being's life? And then once you can get to the source of that behavior, once you can get to what happened as a child that conditioned these responses, that's almost as conditioned as a knee jerk response when you go to the doctor with a little hammer and they bang your knee, your leg just kicks out.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to that,
Yeah.
and once people get what caused those responses, you could then stop the action, because a
Mm-hmm.
conditioned response is an automatic response. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the old famous Pavlov's dogs analogy, where ring a bell, feed the dog, ring a bell, feed the dog, ring a bell, feed the dog, and suddenly you ring a bell, and whether there's food or not, the dog will salivate. And then years and years and years later, if the dog hasn't heard a bell in 10 years, ring a bell, and that dog will salivate. So
Mm-hmm.
what gets conditioned as a child gets carried through into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
So people are in this constant state of inertia. Nothing is going to change unless it stops the action. So we get to learn about those conditioned responses, and then we
Mm-hmm.
get to recognize them as they are happening. And then people are given the ability to stop the action.
Mm-hmm.
Once you stop the action, you could approach whatever loss you've got from a different perspective, not the perspective of that which was conditioned. So we're basically stopping the action on the conditioned behaviors and actualizing new behaviors. And it sounds very heady and wordy and whatever, but I have found it works amazingly well when people actually see, wait, what I'm doing is a conditioned response. It's not what I actually want to do. How I'm grieving is how I've been conditioned to grieve. How I'm interacting with loss is how I've been conditioned to interact with loss.
Now,
And
how long does something like that take? Does it take months? Does it take a week? Like when you're working with someone like that before they can begin to see some results?
well, it's interesting because I would say within the course of a couple of sessions, we can pinpoint all the different areas in which the client has been conditioned. And then the difficult piece is for people to actually accept that their conditioned responses are out of their control. Like they don't get that they're not actually deciding to do that and that's the right thing to do. It takes something to start to connect it in so many different areas of their life till they finally get, oh my God, I see it now.
Mm-hmm.
I see that this is something that I've been conditioned to do.
So
This
it
is,
takes a little time to kind of lead them to that
yeah,
point.
I mean, usually in the course of a month or two,
Mm-hmm.
and now really grounded in, I could be another way.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to really make sure that everybody understands that being another way does not mean letting go of your thoughts and beliefs and what you're committed to. It's just being another way around your commitments that might actually have them come into fruition a lot faster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not backing down and saying, oh my God, I've seen the error of my way. No, there is no error in the way. You've
Yeah.
been conditioned and now you've got to be reconditioned.
And what about, like, if I didn't know you and I saw this and I saw this interview with you on it, I might say to myself, well, that's well and fine, But what about those of us who might be dealing with money issues during COVID, or those of us who are in marginalized communities who are just trying to take care of our kids, but we're dealing with this? Like, what do we say to those of us dealing with these things in terms of what you're saying about conditioned responses?
Right. And, we're conditioned around everything. We have thoughts about money, finances, thoughts about relationships, thoughts about religion, thoughts about politics, thoughts about everything. However, people have to understand that those thoughts are created out of what has been conditioned. So, if you're going to get it, doesn't mean you're suddenly going to be a rich person. But what it does mean is you'll have a different way in which to look at your finances, such that you're not giving up or you're not stuck with your opinion about them,
Hmm.
which then opens up the door to thinking about them in a different way and
Hmm.
acting about them in a different way. Like I work
Hmm.
with children that are disabled,
Yeah.
and their parents come to me like their lives are over because that's what they were taught. Disabled kids are a certain way and they'll never be able to do X, Y, and Z. That's a conditioned response. They don't see beyond what they believe. Now, it may be true in certain cases, but not in all cases. So suddenly, I mean, I've had patients that have come to me, and for years and years and years, they'll come to me at age 13. They've never walked, some of them have never spoken. Between working with them physically and working with them in a behavioral way, suddenly they're speaking and walking.
Hmm.
I didn't perform a miracle. I just had them look at it in a different way and gave them the freedom to take actions in a different way.
Wow. And where are you located? Now I know where you're located, all right, because I know you. But for our audience, tell our audience where you're located and how they can reach you.
Okay, well, I'm located in New York City,
Hmm.
and they could reach me either via my website or my phone number is also on the website. You can call the office and,
Hmm.
I'd be
And for
happy.
those who cannot see it, that is clarityunconcealed.com is the website you're looking at now. That's clarityunconcealed.com. We're speaking with Dr. Ernest Biscardi here on Face to Face. Right. So, Ernest, just to begin to wrap it up, what would you say the number one thing is? Now, I know you work on a one-to-one basis, uh, and I know you've also given seminars to very many people, of hundreds of people. But on your one-to-one basis, what is the biggest issue that you would say you see or come across that we're kind of all dealing with within society? If there
Fear,
were through line. Yeah.
fear,
Mm.
fear of taking a risk is the most important because at the end of the day, what people want is right there in front of them, and they convince themselves they can't get it. And it's just fear.
Hmm.
Fear. And when fear is running the day, people don't get fulfilled. People don't get what they want. So
Mm.
we work a lot through fears and origins of fears.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Dr. Ernest Biscardi. That again was Dr. Ernest Biscardi here on Face to Face. Once again, you can reach Ernest Biscardi and through his website and his numbers there at clarityunconcealed.com. No, again, I've known Ernest for years, and he has worked with many groups of people, a very diverse client base of all walks of life. And just on a personal note, I want to tell you, um, as a woman of color, as a trans les identified person, I have never met any white man in all of my life who has done more for injustice and race relations through the work he does. And that's why we had him on here today at Face to Face. Ernest, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Much
You're
love
so
to you.
Much love to you too. Much love to the audience. Thank you for coming out to Face. And please tune into Presenza.com, who is hosting it. You want to sign on there and check out the amazing articles and come back again. I'll be doing a show on March 11th where we will have as our host Dr. Sandra McGuire with a surprise opening performance for you.